Minister in reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank all the members who've spoken on the bill, member for Cootamundra and the opposition spokesperson in this space, the member for Mount Druitt, the members from Murray, Wagga Wagga, Ballina, Northern Tablelands, Albury, Oxley, Barwon, Coffs Harbour, and finally the member for Tamworth. And the member for Tamworth, just by way of opening on this, really hit the nail on the head about something here. He told us that in 2022 the Coalition was starting a process of consultation on something that was supposed to have started in 2012. So he admitted to us that over 10 years the Coalition took no action to implement one of the fundamental parts of the Basin Plan, which for all that time they said they supported. So the Coalition, when they talk about this, should go out and admit to the people that it's in a rage and a lather trying to work up tonight that it is directly responsible for the fact that communities in the Murray-Darling Basin today have got buybacks going on. And the reason for that is because under the Basin Plan you had the SIDLAMs, the Sustainable Diversion Adjustment Limit Measures. We had 605 gigalitres of downwater as a component of that, which was negotiated in the lead up to 2012. And the capacity of that was to reduce the Sustainable Diversion Adjustment Limit and therefore the amount of water that had to be recovered if certain things were done. That included constraints removals. It included a whole range of other SIDLAM measures. As of today,
Member for Tamworth, come to order.
Today, none of that has been achieved because you guys did nothing in 10 years. Nothing. So the situation we had from the Coalition in government was, oh yeah, we support removal of constraints, but if one person says no, then it won't happen. Don't worry about that. We'll just go with the buybacks. We'll pretend it all won't happen. We'll pretend that you can just wind back the clock and the Basin Plan won't happen. Well, you've got to be, if you're a leader in a regional community, you've got to show some leadership and be a little bit realistic about what these things mean. And I'm listening to the member for Tamworth who's having a little bit of difficulty being truthful about this because buybacks are opposed by this government. We've got buybacks today. We've got buybacks today because of your inability to do your jobs over 10 years. Your inability to do your jobs.
Order. Member for Tamworth will come to order.
Now let me come to some of the points that were raised. Now there was some thoughtful contributions, and there were some contributions from people in this place who clearly have not got a clue about the Basin Plan. And I'll come to some of them later, but I'll start with one of the thoughtful ones, and that is the Shadow Minister, who is always thoughtful in this place. But there is a few things that I need to correct on that. There was a lot of talk from the opposition about deeds of release. I mentioned that several times in the second reading speech. Deeds of release are an option for people. They are an option for landholders. But it is also important to have the easements. We heard a lot of comments from other opposition spokespeople about these terrible easements. Well, easements are the same thing we use for things like pipelines, power lines, roads, a whole range of things where easements are actually used. There is easements across private properties for roads, for example, for people to access their other properties. They are a common part of the way that we work. One of the things which I really need to emphasise here, because a number of the opposition members in speaking suggested that, this just means that someone's going to be railroaded, they'll have an easement forced on them. No. Easements, and the member for Murray talked about no consultation. Every easement with a private landholder is directly negotiated with the landholder. Every easement. And the other thing which a number of the members opposite were talking about was suggesting that that as a result of the amendment in the upper house on this, which there is an urgent need for, they were suggesting that meant that if Water New South Wales went above the agreed area for an environmental water, if it created more flooding, that they'd be exempt from any action. That is simply not true. The opposition spokesperson talked about this taking away the opportunity for civil action. That is not true. It clarifies where civil action can occur. So it's a clarification. So, to all those wonderful people out there listening to this and watching it or whatever, a lot of the statements we saw simply aren't correct. Now, there is the other thing I want to take up from the Shadow Minister is where she said there's very little reference from this government to water as a critical human need. Or was you? Yeah. I would contest that, because this government talks whenever about critical human need, which actually was mentioned in the speech that I gave earlier, but the Minister for Water talks about it consistently. She does talk to regional communities about their needs, about the shortages that some of them occur. I know she is aware. I know that the Shadow Minister raised Narandra's dirty water today in the Parliament, and that is certainly something that the government is aware of as well. So I'd fix it, he says, after 12 years in government of not doing anything at all. 12 years in government of not doing anything at all. It's yeah, that's right. We would have got to that if we're in our 13th year. Yeah.
That's what we're gonna
do. This legislation is about meeting New South Wales's obligations under the Basin Plan, which the opposition says it supports. There was a fair bit of conversation and discussion from some of the members who seem to know something about the Basin Plan review, which is underway. I would encourage members to read the New South Wales submission to the plan when that's public, because it absolutely supports our communities. It makes it clear that the New South Wales government doesn't support buybacks. It talks about needing to relook at things like the salt export objectives. There's a whole range of things in there which are very supportive of positions which I know irrigation communities think are very important. And I would just note, again, as I have when I've talked about water in this place before, that prior to coming back into this place, I was for 4 years CEO of the National Irrigators Council, and I was also on the Murrumbidgee Irrigation Board for several years before I came back into this place. So I'm not coming in here and talking in complete ignorance. And one of the things that I can tell you is that when I was CEO of the National Irrigators Council, when I was CEO of National Irrigators Council, I spoke to many of our irrigators around the community about the need to get on with the job of delivering the measures, the prerequisite policy measures and the SIDLAM measures. And I really strongly cautioned against jumping on the bandwagon with people who opposed constraints relaxation, because that meant that we would, and I actually explicitly said this to members, because I said that would, at some future stage, mean that the 605 gigalitres of down water had to be recovered through other means. So let's not pretend this is all a big surprise. I know that Niall Blair, when he was Minister, was very well aware of this. I worked quite a lot with him when I was the CEO of National Irrigators Council, and I know that he found it sometimes a frustrating portfolio. I think that probably anyone would find it a frustrating portfolio at times, but I know that he was aware of those challenges, and I was intrigued to see that he actually replaced me on the Murrumbidgee Irrigation Board as well, so there seems to be a bit of a revolving thing going on with some of this. But there's a few other things that I want to talk about. There is, as we go through the process of negotiation for environmental flows, we are talking about, and I want to take on the member for Murray, who talks in outraged terms about flooding private land, and quite outrageously in itself, she's posted on social media today an AI-generated picture, I assume, of the Minister for Water sitting in a rowboat out the front of a flooded pub. Now, that is not leadership for a community. That is just complete outrageous misinformation and misleading. Government is negotiating with people the easements. This is not land that's never been flooded before. We know it's land that floods in a natural flood. We know that it's floodplain in many cases. And the idea of negotiating this is so that you can achieve the outcomes of the Basin Plan by allowing man-made programmed flooding in these areas to improve the health of our river system. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that, yes, there'll be flooding, but the difference between that and a natural flood is that the landowners will be consulted about when it's going to happen. They'll know it's going to happen. They will have been able to get government funding, which was available for a very long time, but I'm not sure how much is available now because of the 10 years of inaction, 12 years of inaction from those opposite. They'll be able to get funding to improve infrastructure on their properties, so that their properties can be managed in a way which actually takes account of those floods. They'll be warned so they can move their cattle off. I understand that when Water New South Wales wants to have an environmental flow in an area, if someone says, look, can you give me a week to get my crop off, then they'll talk to them about that and they'll negotiate it. So that's the way it works. And what we had from some members in this place opposite today was this standing up in this place and trying to suggest that this bill is it. It's the only thing that's happening without the context of all the work that's going on to actually implement the Basin Plan and to negotiate with people. Now, the member for Murray talked about being outraged about this, and she talked about there needing to be valley-by-valley solutions. Well, she knows perfectly well that water sharing plans are negotiated on a valley-by-valley basis, that environmental watering plans are negotiated on a valley-by-valley basis. They are exactly tailored to the valleys that they work in. She knows that. She just chose not to say that. She thought it would be better for the headlines to go with something else. That's not... You know, I'm like most of us here today. We've got a lot of regional members in this community. And I don't think that just going down the path of trying to get the headline, the politics of protest, isn't the way most of us want to operate in our communities, because sometimes you have to explain tough things, and you have to be tough enough and a leader enough to do it. And one of the reasons why some of these communities are having a tough time at the moment is because people have not been explaining and working with the people and really quite fundamentally challenging the notion that if you just block it all, somebody will turn back the clock and give all the water back. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. We live in a democracy, and the majority of people, the majority of electorates simply don't agree with that position. So it's something which I think good leaders in country communities should be, by all means, taking up the cause of their constituents, by all means making sure that they are protecting things that they are genuinely concerned about and making sure that proper compensation and consultation is in place, but not misleading them, not trying to pretend to them that there's some alternative parallel universe where none of this has to happen, and that's what we see far too often. So we see this sort of scare campaign approach to this bill. This comment from the member for Murray where she's opposed to deliberately flooding your land. Well, let's face it, that's what environmental watering is. So, it's just a rhetoric which doesn't work. Property rights were talked about quite a bit as well. Easements, as I said before, are a normal part of the way that we deliver things, services and things right across. So it can be an interesting debate. The member for Oxley, who clearly hasn't got a clue about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, but likes to get up here and rage about things, he can do that. Personally, I think rural communities respond better to members who actually work with government and deliver things rather than just raging about things. But there you go. He can have his own approaches. He said it's important to have environmental flows, and he said he was outraged because easements are binding on future owners. Well, yes, because you don't put in place a basin plan, go through all this work and get all these rights to actually run environmental flows down a river only to have someone sell their property and that person go, oh, you'll have to stop it all. We're not going to have that anymore. It's just not practical to do that. So you simply can't go ahead with those sort of assertions. Is there a one-size-fits-all approach, as the member for Oxley claimed? No, there isn't. There is individual work with every single landholder in every valley separately to make sure that they know exactly where the easement is going to be, the upper limits. And the other thing that the opposition put forward was, if they go outside the agreed area, they won't be liable to have civil action taken. Yes, they will. Yes, Water New South Wales will. If they go outside the agreed easement, they will be able to have civil action taken against them. they will be able to have seek compensation for that. The member for Oxley and a couple of others said, "Oh, what if you went into the city and said you can't have compensation for a burst water main?" It's so totally different that it's a ludicrous argument, completely ludicrous. I acknowledge the member for Wagga Wagga's contribution, and again, one of the thoughtful contributions in this place. He, as I pointed out, recognises that if we don't achieve the SID lambs, then we will have water buybacks. That is just a reality. We don't want them. I've been a long advocate for efficiency measures, and around the Basin plan, around the Basin, you can really see communities which have actually embraced efficiency measures, which have done quite well, versus communities that have just had buybacks, and it's chalk and cheese. So in his day that he visited, the member for Coffs Harbour told us that he went to Griffith recently. Good on him. In his day that he visited there, I wonder if he also then went to the Murray irrigation area and some of the smaller communities there where buybacks actually took out a massive slab of their productive water with no efficiency measures in return, and we did see schools close. We did see a whole lot of services go in that area, and that's why Labor, and to the credit, the federal Labor government in 2012 moved away from buybacks, because that was what had been happening since the Basin Plan was first flagged by John Howard, if we remember back to then, 2007, and instead moved to efficiency measures. Griffith really embraced efficiency measures, and Griffith's economy over that term has done quite well. In fact, they produce more in agricultural value now than they did prior to the start of the Basin Plan, and it's because they have become an incredibly efficient irrigation area, and it is chalk and cheese. So it's really important to understand that there is different ways of going about these things, and if we do it right, we can actually deal with some of the challenges. And there's big challenges coming up. Let's face it. The member for Oxley again told us that I think it was member for Oxley told us that climate change is all a climate change. Where is he? Oh, the net zero fallacy. Well, climate change projections, unfortunately, have proven to be absolutely spot on when it comes to runoff and impacts on environment and rainfall in Australia, and the prediction for the Murray-Darling Basin is that we could see a reduction in runoff into the rivers up to 20%. Now that has a massive future impact on allocations, correct. And so that's why it's so important that we are dealing with these issues in a way which is improving efficiency in irrigation and making sure that communities can prosper, but that we're also getting that Basin Plan in place so that we're not seeing 605 more gigalitres and then maybe even the upwater, because that's still a disputed part of the whole thing, being taken out with buybacks. It is really important that we're focusing on some of those things. The member for Wagga talked about again being exempt from civil claims. I want to assure him that Water New South Wales is not exempt from civil claims under this legislation. It just gives it protection if it's doing what it agreed to do, and the things that are reasonable as it goes through that. The member for Wagga, I think, and Barwon talked about supporting the referral to a committee. The government won't be supporting that, but in discussions with the member for Murray, I understand that the Minister for Water has indicated that she would be happy to refer some of these issues to a committee after we get this in place. And the reason we need to get it in place is because we have been, obviously the issues around easements have been going for a while, but the issues that have been raised out of the Gwyder and the Gwyder wetlands are current and urgent. And that's why it's important that we deal with those with this legislation and get it through the Parliament. So, Speaker, we've got a range of, I've outlined already what all the mechanisms are in this legislation, and a number of the administrative changes that are going to help to make sure that when we have environmental flows that they can actually be delivered. And let's be clear about the Guida situation that we're dealing with here. Those flows have been happening for 20 years. I'd spoken, when I was involved in irrigation, I was speaking to landholders who were very happy to see the healthy Guida wetlands and were assisting and voluntarily assisting with the flows to get the water there. The fact that they can then be held up by one landholder, and I don't know anything about the landholder. Sounds like the member for Barwon does, but I don't know anything about the circumstances of that member for that one landholder. But the fact that you can have something which had been progressing well for so many years and suddenly stopped, I think if the government didn't act on that, we'd be quite rightly accused of being irresponsible and not governing in the interests of the environment of New South Wales and the people who, and the large number of people who actually care about the native wildlife, the flora and fauna in the Guida wetlands, and potentially that then sets a precedent for other areas. So you know, it's a shame that we need to bring this on suddenly to make sure that we can get water delivered to important wetlands, but it's important. And we will continue, as well as this though, down the path of making sure things like the program in the Murrumbidgee, which is negotiations with landholders, direct negotiations. The whole aim of this is to ensure that we've got the capacity to deliver flows in a way which is negotiated with farmers. And contrary to all the stuff that we heard from the opposition and some of the members opposite in this, that is what this government is trying to do, but we're actually trying to get it going, rather than just talking about it and not doing anything for 10 or 12 years as we saw previously, because it's important, because communities suffer if we don't do it. Again, there is a Basin Plan review underway at the moment, and some members mentioned that. It's really important because the Basin Plan was actually supposed to have been implemented by next year. Clearly it's not going to be. Some of us had been drawing attention to that for quite a long time, but never mind. But there is some really important elements in it. I think some things that people will welcome in that. There is finally recognition in that we should be looking more seriously at complementary measures to help achieve SDL targets, particularly things like fish passage, riparian health, pest species removal of cold water pollution, a whole range of things which can and should be counted because they directly contribute to river health. River health isn't just about water flowing down a river, particularly if it's cold water, which native fish can't breed in. But so far in the original Basin Plan, a lot of it was based just on volume. But it is really encouraging to see that the Basin Plan review flags complementary measures as being something we should be looking at. And it's something which I know that the Minister for Water is, I've spoken to her about this as well, and those things are very important. So I recognise that the Basin Plan causes angst for a lot of communities, but I also say to them, it's not going to go away. We need to work with it. We need to implement it in a way which ensures that your businesses and your communities can continue, and we can do that. We would be able to do it a lot better if we didn't have people who decided that the politics of protest was more important than the politics of delivery and outcomes. And unfortunately, in this debate, as we saw on the weekend, particularly in the by-election, the politics of protest can often just become the dominant part of it. But I hold out hope that we'll get somewhere down the track on this, and that the Basin Plan review will give us some ways forward. It certainly shouldn't be about recovery of a lot more water, or any more water than is already in the Basin Plan. It should be about how we achieve environmental outcomes using all the different methods at hand. This legislation today is a small part of all this. It's not something that's an outrageous trampling of people's rights and standalone thing, and the first time we've heard about this. It's dealing with issues we knew we had to deal with for a decade or more. And on that basis, I commend the bill to the House.
The question is, the bill be read a second time.